Okay, I'd like to ask a question. To what extent do you guys think that Christianity is compatible with Neoplatonism? In terms of like Augustine of Hippo and early Christian philosophy?
I was actually going to segue into that topic because I saw this. I saw E. Michael Jones, who's this Catholic apologist, recently say he's pretty popular. Now he said, "Oh, he criticized Orthodox Christianity. And he said, "Oh, this is just Neoplatonism. It's the same thing," which sparked a lot of controversy. I mean, I certainly see some similarities, and I wanted to talk about Gnosticism as well, actually.
Oh yeah,
because I think it's very relevant. But I think FlyingCabala seems like you want to.
oh yeah. So I'll first touch on Gnosticism because I think it's very germane, and then I'll actually segue into the question of how compatible Neoplatonism is with Christianity. So Gnosticism, I would say, is kind of a loose term of Christian movements, like kind of from the first few centuries. Yeah, from like the first few hundreds, so to speak, because I mean, there wasn't necessarily a canonized form of Christianity at that time. That's why you had like a lot of movements like within Christianity that like considered themselves Christians, but they weren't necessarily tied in a common canon, I would say. So like that's why you had the Arians, like Arians, and Gnostics, and I mean a bunch of other movements. So the Gnostics ultimately saw the material world, generally speaking, created by an evil, like a quote unquote evil demiurge, and they called him Yaldabaoth. But then beyond the material realm created by the, like, so to speak, ignorant / malevolent Yaldabaoth, there's the realm of bliss and purity and being. So I guess compatible with the Neoplatonic understanding of being. But then they see Jesus Christ as basically the human being that got incarnated onto Earth to basically remove humanity from its ignorance and to basically like take humanity to the upper like realm, like above Yaldabaoth.
Yeah, to the divine realm, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I do think that there was. I do think that there was some tension, though, between Neoplatonism and Gnosticism. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Plotinus, who's kind of, I guess you could call him the father of Neoplatonism. He's definitely that's cool. He wrote an essay or some work criticizing Gnosticism.
I have actually read that work.
Yeah, so there is some tension, but yeah, I definitely see some key similarities, especially with this idea of this sort of flawed or your evil material world, and the notion of gnosis, right? I think that that kind of what does gnosis exactly mean in what is it, Greek, or because it's
yeah.
It's
in Greek, it's actually an interesting concept because when it comes to languages, not all words translate exactly. So in Greek, there are actually 3 words that can be like roughly translated as knowledge. So doxa, episteme, and gnosis. And I would say like one can probably like arrange them hierarchically. So doxa would be, well, I guess a more common translation would be opinion. So that's basically just I guess the opinion of the rabble, like, so to speak.
Yes.
Or just the belief, like, so to speak. So that's the lowest form of knowledge. Then episteme, that means like understanding, because like episteme in ancient Greek, like that's the verb for to understand. So that's the one that is like above that. So like it means just understanding something. But I guess it just generally speaking refers to secular knowledge, like, I don't know, knowledge about history, something like that. But then gnosis is the highest type of knowledge, and it's a spiritual type. So
yes,
when the Gnostics use it, they like refer to mean spiritual knowledge that can basically take you up to the divine like realms. And I mean, I would say like I don't think Neoplatonists use that word too much, but I mean, if you like, I think the meaning of it is quite understandable. I mean, basically, in other words, just spiritual knowledge. or
Yeah,
kind of the highest step, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think also what sort of differentiated Gnosticism from later Christian sects is that they didn't really prioritize this dichotomy between sin and repentance, which is kind of what most people associate with Christianity, but rather with illusion, as in sort of not being able to escape the confines of this flawed material world and enlightenment, or what you described as gnosis. So it's just basically getting divine or esoteric insight. So it's a very mystical concept.
Yeah,
and I think that's why, because we touched on occultism earlier, and occultism and esotericism, and how Plato kind of laid the groundwork for that in a sense. I mean, Gnosticism is definitely very interconnected to occultism. I mean, so many occult sects were inspired by it. Like, you can go up to Aleister Crowley, who founded the Church of Thelema, right? I mean, fascinating figure.
Yeah.
And he, that was kind of that was actually sort of the basis for his various ideas of ritual magic and sex magic and divination, trying to escape this material.
To be honest, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, I don't think Crowley was a very serious figure. From what I know about him, I mean, I think they're just more serious, occult figures than him, because I mean, he does place a lot of emphasis on sex, magic.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's might be pretty fishy as to why. As to if he actually thought that to be conducive to spirituality, or if he just kind of exploited people for his own perversion.
Yeah, I mean, no, there's absolutely no doubt that he was a bit of a sexual pervert.
Yeah, exactly.
He had all these bizarre sodomy rituals and everything. But we mentioned.
So yeah, I mean,
we mentioned.
I definitely wouldn't put him.
But Evola definitely had an interest in sex magic as well, and these more obscure concepts. I mean, he wrote a book called the Eros.
Yeah, you're right.
Sex, where he lays it all, and I think he actually did. He in one of his books, I'm not sure if it was Eros or some other books, he actually writes about Aleister Crowley, and people draw many similarities between Crowley and Evola, to the point where I've even seen some detractors of Evola say that he was a wannabe Aleister Crowley. They both had many very similar and kind of niche obsessions, like mountain climbing, right? Aleister Crowley was actually a champion mountaineer, and then Evola actually wrote a book called Meditations on the Peaks, where he argues. Mountain climbing is one of the ultimate means of self-actualization and reaching this sort of transcendental state. So I wouldn't really. I see people do kind of tend to dismiss Crowley as just this strange sort of drug addicted edgelord type. I wouldn't completely dismiss him entirely, because his ideas have definitely had influence, and he was actually connected to some very powerful elite figures. We tend to associate these ideas of occult satanic elites practicing strange rituals as just outlandish or bizarre, just the realm of these schizo conspiracy theories. But when you actually start diving into these topics, and I've done a lot of research on things like parapolitics over the years, you see it's not really as far-fetched from reality as you might think. I mean, Aleister Crowley actually had ties to British intelligence. He worked for the MI5, and he was active in all of these covert operations. He had a role in the sinking of the Lusitania, the flight of Rudolf Hess, who was this famous Nazi leader. Not leader, but, Nazi figure. And he actually was connected to the founding of NASA's Jet Propulsion's laboratory, which was founded by this guy, Jack Parsons, who was also a Thelemite occultist, and they had anal sex rituals in the desert in California.
I think we should get more into Jack Parsons while we're at it for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, Jack Parsons. FlyingCabala, have you heard of Jack Parsons, this figure?
I might have.
He's kind of one of my go-to historical figures when you just want to sort of delve into the more bizarre side of things, because the origins of NASA are very strange. But yeah, he was he pretty much laid the groundwork for rocket science as a field of study as we know it. Before his developments, it was sort of just viewed as something confined to the pages of sci-fi novels, and it wasn't really taken seriously by the mainstream scientific world. But he was a brilliant man, and so he sort of pioneered this rocket science technology and the concept of sending rockets into the moon. So he became a scientist at Caltech. His formal background was in chemistry, and he had this huge lab in Pasadena. But it was also there in California that he met Aleister Crowley, and he actually joined this lodge. He joined this called the Ordo Templo Orientalis, and so he became very obsessed with these ideas of sex magic and black magic, magical rituals. I mean, he was a very disturbed person. When he was a child, he tried to summon the devil in his bedroom. I think he was in middle school at the time, but he was engaging in his rituals, and he basically viewed NASA's the rockets that he'd be designing for NASA as weapons that would be penetrating the dome of God, the dome of God. He viewed the heavens as the dome of God, like literal satanic projectiles. And before he would he would test out his rockets, he would actually chant hymns to this pagan god Pan. And it all sort of culminated in this ritual in the desert in California that's now known as the Babylon working. And it's absolutely absurd. I mean, he slept anal sex with Aleister Crowley and ate cakes made out of semen and other bizarre rituals because they believed that they would summon this deity. I think it would summon, what is it? The Whore of Babylon, they called it, which is some figure in Christianity, actually. Whore of Babylon. And there was the Whore of Babylon is related to Gnosticism in some way. I mean, there's a lot of strange iconography in Gnosticism. Just some of it escapes me. I can't really recite it off the top of my head, but I mean, he's pretty much the go-to example of sort of occult or mystical beliefs actually having an influence on world events and world history. And I mean, it's just kind of fascinating to realize that the motivations for the creation of rocket science and NASA's jet propulsion laboratory were just so bizarre and out there, which kind of ties into what we've been talking about throughout this podcast, like with Alexander Dugin. I definitely want to talk about him as well. But yeah, that's the bizarre life of Jack Parsons. And there's actually a good book on that. It's called Sex and Rockets. It's published by Feral House, which I'm actually making my next YouTube video is going to be sort of analysis of Feral House and some of the work that they do. They're just a publishing press that was founded by Adam Parfrey. And the book that I'm writing right now actually is something that I aim to get published by Feral House. They're still around, but they cover a lot of material like this. In addition to philosophy as well, they actually published Meditations on the Peaks by Evola, or at least in English translation in the 1990s. But yeah, so that's our stuff.